In our last video, and our final video for 2022, we visited Washington, D.C. If you love American history, this is definitely one city you must check out. In this video,
today we're on the Cotee River in Port Richie, which heads into the Gulf. It is a beautiful day for kayaking.
So to kick off 2023, our first video is actually a kayaking adventure along the lower Cotee River, where it empties into the Gulf of Mexico in central Florida. For those of you that have been following our travel videos, this is not a departure. We still plan on doing plenty of traveling. This is actually more what we envisioned a year or so ago when we started the channel, to include other types of activities. So throughout the year, we hope to add some kayaking, maybe some hiking, bicycling, things of that nature as well. So we really hope you enjoyed this addition to our channel. Caro, as usual, why don't you tell us a little bit about the area, and then we'll talk about the river.
So our kayak journey takes us from the city of Port Richie, Florida, and ends in Port Richie. Obviously, those towns are right next to each other, and they were founded about a year apart back in 1914 and 1915. We launched from Sims Park, which is in downtown Port Richie. It's named after George Sims, who is one of the founding fathers of Port Richie, and he gifted that land to the city. There's all kinds of great events that go on there, and it is a really wonderful park.
If you're interested in learning more about this great little town in central Florida, last year, somewhere around the summer, we released a video specifically on downtown Port Richie. You should check that out. Since we've already covered some of the history of this area in a previous video, Caro, why don't you tell us a little bit about this river that we're kayaking?
This is the Pithlachascotee River. Most people, for obvious reasons, call it the Cotee River. The river originates near Cruz Lake. It flows over 23 miles to the south and west through Starkey Wilderness Park, and then turns northwest through downtown Port Richie and ends up in the Gulf of Mexico at Miller's Bayou.
Many of the houses date all the way back to the inception of the city back in the 1920s. At the time, this was sort of a heyday for some of the Hollywood elite that would come here for vacation. Most of these folks were of the silent film era, so names have sort of been lost over time. But one name that owned a house here on this river that most watching this video should be very familiar with was none other than Johnny Cash.
This is a fairly slow-moving river, so it was really fun to kayak in. At its deepest, it's 51 feet deep, but there are a lot of very shallow areas as well.
As this river passes right through the heart of downtown Port Richie and is paralleled by Sims Park, there are a lot of activities that go on here, including a very cool boat parade for the holiday season. So always the elephant in the room when talking about water in Florida is the question of alligators. Are there alligators in this river? And the short answer is absolutely. I've seen them myself, actually going the opposite direction, which we'll make a video of, I'm sure, sometime in the future. As you get closer to the Gulf, the water becomes more brackish, gets more of that salt water, so the likelihood of seeing them decreases significantly. But when you go up the river, it actually goes through a preserve, which definitely has its fair share of alligators. So the short answer is any water that you see in Florida, particularly fresh water, you might as well just assume that there's some gators around, because probably there are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, in our previous life, we actually had inflatable kayaks, but definitely don't want those in gator country.
I'll just say this, then we'll put this topic to bed. But the reality is, some common sense goes a long ways. Humans were not on the menu for gators. Usually if there's a gator attack, it's because they've been provoked or people have fed them. Never feed them. Don't let them associate people with food. And be very careful during the mating season or getting near any of the nests. Shy of that, odds are if you see one, they're just chilling on the bank and minding their own business, and you do the same and everybody's happy. So with that said, let's enjoy some of this beautiful gator-free scenery, and we'll catch up with you shortly.
So we've talked about gators, now let's talk about birds. I will be honest, until we moved here, I didn't even realize I was into birds, but there are so many incredible birds in this part of the country. There's everything from wood storks, which were on the brink of extinction and now back, to blue heron. In a little bit, when we're out on the Gulf, you'll see some pelicans. There's cormorants, all kinds of really cool birds to watch.
Yeah, speaking of pelicans, you'll often see them around fishermen and fishing boats because they've learned they can get a pretty quick and easy meal. Unfortunately, we didn't capture that on this video, although we did capture the pelicans chilling by a fishing boat. There just didn't happen to be anybody in it at the time.
There's quite a few great restaurants along the waterfront. This is the Crab Shack, and we love going here because you're just in a tiki bar. You can sit out and enjoy the water.
Yeah, and just when we get the other side of this bridge, a whole bunch more restaurants show up. Definitely a cool place if you like to go out and have a beer along the water. So at this point, we are now at the mouth of the Cotee River where it enters the Gulf of Mexico. This is called Miller's Bayou.
When you get out into the Gulf from the river, it is noticeably windier, so you have to be mindful of that in kayaks. It's a lot more work out here than it was on the river itself.
Very true, and like a lot of other places, the weather can change in an instant. When we started this kayak trip, there was barely a breeze, and at this point, the wind's really starting to kick up. And of course, it's kicking up in the direction that we need to return to. So it wasn't near as fun returning as it was getting out to the Gulf. As usual, we like to end these videos with some final thoughts. Carol, what did you think of this kayak trip?
This was a great kayak trip. Like I said before, it's a slow-moving river, so it's an easy paddle. There's lots to see, plenty of birds and wildlife to look at, and a beautiful day, especially considering it is February.
Agreed. And I'm excited to add more content to this channel. We love to travel. Obviously, it's a travel channel, but don't forget to check out the things that are in your own backyard. So with that said, get off the couch and we'll see you next time.
Cheers!